Hey, this is Nicole calling from Hamilton, and I needed to let everyone know that I really proudly support Vish and Creative Control. I have for many years, I will for many more, as long as he keeps delivering these amazing interview podcasts. When you hear one of Vish's interviews, you think he's known this guest for years, they're good friends, but the truth is he approaches every interview, whether it's sort of up-and-coming indie artists or established icons or like famous, intimidating comedians with a really deep, genuine curiosity, so he's never met this person, and the same really warm candor, as so he's known them forever. I think it really lends to a great chat, no matter who he's talking to, and for that reason, I think you should throw Vish, $1 a month? He's got jokes. The jokes make it worth it. Support Creative Control on Patreon.
To make your flexible monthly donation to Creative Control, please visit patreon.com/Creative Control today. I'm Vish's wife, and remember, when you name a dog Janet or Timothy, you are dragging humanity down just a little bit.
Ranaldo and Raül Refree are acclaimed musicians who live in New York City and Barcelona, respectively. A founding member of Sonic Youth, Ranaldo encountered Refree in Spain and worked with the acclaimed producer on a 2017 solo band record called Electric Trim. The pair have collaborated even more closely on their new duo record, Names of North End Women, which is out now via Mute Records. I recently connected with Lee and Raül while each were at their respective homes and grappling with the recent restrictions imposed upon all of us to try and quell the COVID-19 pandemic, which we're all obviously living through at the moment. And we went on to discuss their new record's exploration of sampling and other different textures, their decision to use more spoken word style singing, how Winnipeg, Manitoba plays a role on Names of North End Women, what Lee made of recent solo albums by Kim Gordon and Thurston Moore, Sonic Youth plans, and much more. A part of the Entertainment One network with the support of listeners like you who subscribe to this podcast and spread the word about it, and make flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/Creative Control, plus in-kind support from Pizza Trokadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, and Grandad's Donuts in Hamilton. This is the 533rd episode of Creative Control, featuring the adventurous Lee Ranaldo and Raül Refree, with your host, me, Vish Khanna. Hello, Raül. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Welcome. It's nice to have you on the line. Where in the world are you right now?
I'm in Barcelona right now. I just came back from Lisbon before they closed borders. It seems they are going to close borders in some hours.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. How are you?
Yes.
How are you? This is maybe we're all going through this. How are you doing? You're probably getting these kinds of questions from people from abroad, but I haven't talked to too many people since things really went particularly haywire, I suppose. How are you doing, Raül?
Well, the situation here, it's difficult right now. Like, there's many people infected every day. Hospitals are are completely full. I don't think they can have more people, and it seems that the worst moment is coming. It's gonna come in the next 10 days. So here, the situation is pretty awful.
Are people actually adhering to the self-isolation protocols, or are you staying inside mostly? How's that working?
Yes, I'm home for the whole day. I only go downstairs to buy some food if needed, but I try to buy for the next days, and I stay here. I stay home for 4 or 5 days if I can. And people they want us to stay home because it's the only way to control what's happening. And there's some policemen and the army, even the army on streets, and they are controlling people to not walk on streets if they don't need to.
Okay, well, I've been hearing about this occurring in Italy and France and Spain. I'm sorry you're in that situation. I'm calling you from Canada, and there are similar protocols here, but nothing as severe as that. I'm anticipating it coming, but thus far we are relatively free.
I hope you in Canada and in the States you're gonna do it better. You're gonna control it better than we have done because I think here government and the people that were in control of the situation, they waited too long to take some measures against the spread of the virus.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And speaking of countries that are doing a great job, let's check in with our American friend. Lee, are you there?
I am. I'm here. Nice to speak to you again.
Nice to speak with you, Lee. It's been a little while. Similar questions. How are you holding up there?
Well, it's definitely very weird. I actually am, Raul and I talk all the time, but I didn't realize it was that serious in Spain, that the hospitals are full. They keep talking about the hospitals here, needing to prevent them from overflowing by isolating, and we're trying to do that as much as possible. And yet, on the same hand, we have our younger son is studying at Cornell University, about 4 hours drive from here, and we had to go pick him up in the last couple of days. So 2 days ago, we got in the car and took a 4-hour drive to upstate New York, and stopped in gas stations, and we brought our own food. But it was still very strange to be out and about among people at this time when everybody needs to isolate. And yesterday we drove back home, same thing. And now there's 3 of us here in the house trying to figure out how to stay isolated. Raul and I talked earlier. We're both cyclists, and we talk a lot about cycling and being on the bicycle. And I took a ride earlier today with a friend of mine that I ride with here a lot. And, I figured, taking a bike ride, we're not stopping anywhere. We're staying, at least a meter or more from each other, just riding out in the fresh air. Didn't seem like too bad an idea. But Raul tells me in Spain, even cycling is forbidden. So
yeah,
it's hard to know. It's hard to know what's happening.
Well, it's forbidden not because you can get the virus, like if you are on a bicycle. It's more that if you fall and you break your leg or something, hospitals right now they don't want more people.
Oh, I see.
For
That makes
other
sense.
reasons.
That's a really great point. I mean, most of what the self-isolation is about not spreading the disease, but it's also mostly about not overtaxing our various medical systems. So that's why we're being asked to. That's among the main reasons we're being asked to stay inside and keep ourselves not only healthy but safe. So. Thanks for pointing that out, Raul. Lee, I was thinking...
it's one of these things that right now, people are struggling with it, but people are trying hard, I think, a lot of people to stay isolated. People I talk to all over the country and all over the world, for that matter, are saying the same thing, like, we're just staying at home. So it's kind of unbelievable that it's this global phenomenon, but I worry once the weather really starts to get nice, how hard it's going to be to keep people inside.
Yeah, that's a valid point as well. Raul, you were going to say something?
No, I was going to say that the other day, like 4 days ago, coming from Lisbon, I quit something that I had to finish in a studio in Lisbon before finishing because the situation was getting very serious here. And at the airport, it was like a science fiction movie. I mean, I could have never imagined what I saw, like almost everybody with the masks and with gloves. Like it was like a horrible science fiction movie.
Yeah, we're living in this weird dystopian time, it feels like, and it isn't even as bad as it's going to get, as you pointed out, Raul. And, the prognosis that we've been hearing here in Canada, and I think it's being reported in America too, like we're not going to see the other end of this until July or August at this point. And I have to say, Lee, I was thinking of you during some of this because, as I recall, you guys in Sonic Youth kind of endured this surreal kind of global situation after, I mean, all of us did after 9/11, but you were in the heart of Manhattan.
We've been finding some parallels there.
I wondered about that. You lived near the site, didn't you?
I do. I still live a stone's throw away. I'm in the most interior red zone, as they called it, within blocks of the World Trade Center site.
Right. So you say it's eerily similar. Can you articulate that? What are some of the parallels between that stillness and this one?
Well, this one is more, I have to say, this one is more profound in a certain way because it's beyond politics, and it's a global situation right now where the entire world really has to work together on this in a way that they've never been asked about anything really before.
Yeah.
Or it's going to fall apart and be like, the Black Plague of the Middle Ages or something like that. I mean, I don't think it's inconceivable. And so it's an apolitical issue as opposed to that being a very political issue. But, the sort of awestruck nature of the community back then is what I feel right now. Like when you walk on the streets, if you see someone else out on the street, and this is New York, there's some people out on the street, you wonder like, well, what are you doing out on the street? What am I doing out? I don't know. It's very strange right now.
Yeah, I hear you there, Lee. I don't know if you know this, Lee, but my family and I just moved in the new year to Edmonton, Alberta, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Are you in Edmonton now?
I'm in Edmonton. I'm an Edmontonian. I'm not too far from Winnipeg, where you have some roots, and we'll get into that as we talk about this record. But yeah, we went we've all been isolated, and we went for a walk, and I found myself. And I found other, like when we mostly encountered dog walkers and just people taking a walk, the friendliness is still there. I'm waiting for the paranoia and the hostility to start. People are going stir crazy and they're suspicious of people. But I have to say, like the warmth with which the few people we saw was, hey, a person.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that continues.
Raul's point, I don't know how well our government is doing compared to, he said Spanish government was slow to start. And I think every government has been slow to start. I mean, Chinese were the first that were slow to start in this, it seems. But I don't know if Trump is actually trying to rally in a good way or not. But I think it's certain here that everyone has the picture of what's going on, flatten the curve, as they say. It's don't get sick and be another person taxing the hospital system and all that stuff. It's very intense. And, you live in Edmonton. I guess Edmonton is a big city in Canada.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of the fact that, like, even people in small towns where, they might look askance at all this worry. But everyone everywhere is isolating, it seems.
Well, as of today, there are 129 cases confirmed cases in Edmonton. So, and that by the time people hear this, that number will have ballooned, I'm sure.
Right.
So, I'm just reading everything I can, and I'm unfortunately the gloomy Gus spreading the information that I'm reading to the people I'm living with, and it's
it's important to have that information. It's confirmed cases is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, that's right.
When we were driving yesterday, just north of New York City, we encountered what looked like almost a military operation. They were setting up a huge city of tents, like big white tents in this gigantic empty space. And we were not sure if it was National Guard or what was going on. But as we came back yesterday, we saw that it's testing centers. It's drive-through testing centers.
Yeah.
And once people start driving through, they're going to confirm a lot more cases probably.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I appreciate the news updates. Thank you, guys. I do really. I mean, what are we going to do? We're all isolated. I imagine more people are having these kind of remote conversations. I'm very happy that we're able to connect Barcelona. Oh, Lee, I didn't ask you where you were. Are you in New York?
I am. I'm in New York City.
Right. So
yeah, I'm here.
We've connected Edmonton, New York, and Barcelona. I imagine we're not the only ones trying to connect with people around the world. So it's nice to have you all here. Lee,
I keep thinking a couple things before we leave this issue. The first being that somehow part of me can't help but think that this is the kind of thing this is the first of these kind of situations, and in a way this could be a dress rehearsal for something far more serious on a global level. I think in a way the wars we fight in the coming centuries are going to be as much wars of these kind of things, plagues and viruses, as they are nationalistic type wars.
Yeah, and I hope we learn something. We will learn something from this situation, because there's some things that are clear to me, like the individuality, like the way of politics are working nowadays, like how they are thinking our countries to be, like avoiding public healthcare and things like this. It's not working.
Yeah.
We should think more about community, not so much in every person as a singularity.
It's very true, but beyond that, what I'm thinking at this point is the reason this crisis got out of hand is because of nations. And if there needs to be at this point some sort of global authority for situations like this, that are saying, like, this is the best thing for everyone on the planet to do. It doesn't matter what your nation says or what your political gain or loss from this whole thing is. I mean, like, the World Health Organization is talking truth, but they're not a body with any authority. But it almost seems like this is the biggest argument yet for throwing nations on the pile of last century's idea and establishing something more global for issues like this.
Well, I mean, and you're speaking from a country that is very hell-bent on isolationism. And,
yes.
And,
the moment.
That's right. And I don't mean to accuse you of this, by the way, Lee,
sure.
or your citizens. I know that many of my friends down there are frustrated, but I mean, yes, it's the perfect storm of political rhetoric gone wrong and an actual global issue. And so you have a guy saying, we got to get out of NATO, we got to get out of trade deals, screw the United Nations, screw the World Health Organization, like we can do this on our own. Sure enough, what you're saying is absolutely true. It's being proven every day. We can't you can't just go rogue and
and in a way it's the nail in hopefully the nail in Trump's coffin, because he's having to backtrack on everything right now to try and work in a more global fashion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Lee mentioned that his son is going to Cornell University, and Raul, the last time Lee and I spent a considerable amount of time together, we were actually at the University of Toronto, where I believe his son was it the same son, Lee?
My other son goes to the U of T still.
Yes, there you go.
He's in Toronto now, so we get updates from Toronto as well.
How's he doing?
He's doing okay. School's been suspended. Everybody's working from home.
Yeah.
Everybody on the planet is working from home. The last thing I'll bring up about this whole issue is the thing I find kind of interesting about it is it's a planetary enforced pause. Yeah. It's like whatever everyone was doing is stopped, and it's an interesting moment for reassessment, I think. I really think it's an incredible moment. And if you're, maybe it's not that way yet, but now Canada's talking about closing the border to the U.S., and we're wondering about whether our son stays in his apartment in Toronto or comes home. But if they close the borders, it will be wherever you are at that moment in time. That's where you are. It's a really interesting situation.
Yeah, I was reading this morning that this pause that we are living all together, it's giving nature another pause. I mean, it seems that yesterday they took some photographs of dolphins swimming on the channels of Venice, in the water in Venice.
Really?
Yeah. It didn't happen for a long time. So
wow.
I guess nature needed something like this. It's
also,
humans that were changing the planet, and we need to think twice now before going back to work, which it would happen, I guess, some months from now.
It's so funny you say this, Raul. I read those stories too about how you could actually see the water in Venice clearly, like see through it. Swans were returning. The sky was clear. when China went into lockdown, their nitrous oxide emissions went down so significantly that I was
carbon monoxide.
Yeah, and what I read today was that nitrous oxide is laughing.
Nitrous?
That's laughing gas, isn't it? Yeah, I shared a tweet about it. I just closed everything, but I had a tweet about it, and it said that these emissions in China went down so significantly during the lockdown that it was, it should have given us pause. However, the emissions are climbing now that China has sort of softened its self-isolation policies, and they're starting to climb back up. It's like we didn't learn anything.
Right.
So
I think they're reporting this globally as well. Like there's fewer airplanes flying, fewer people driving cars.
Yeah.
There's a moment where the air is a little bit cleaner.
And that's going to save, I posted a study about this somewhere also, like it has been proven that we might save more lives by cutting our pollution than we will in halting this pandemic. So that is, I also appreciate, Lee, that you've said twice now, this is the last point I'm going to bring up about this, because I don't think it's possible. We're going to keep talking about it. It's going to come up, and maybe it figures into this record in a way. I did want to say, Raul, that the reason I brought up U of T is because that's kind of when I heard your name from Lee for the first time. You guys worked on a record together, what was it, in 2017? Is that right?
Yeah.
Electric Trim, yeah. And a beautiful record, by the way. I really enjoyed that one. And I thought I would use this as a segue to ask you, Raul, about this relationship with Lee. Can you talk a little bit about how you two met and where this working relationship started?
Yes, it was before Electric Trim. It was during a tour in 2013, I guess, or 14. I don't remember exactly the year, but Lee was on tour with his band, with The Dust, and he had a festival in Morocco, and it was canceled. So he had some days in Europe, and he asked the people from Primavera Sound Festival, for because he wanted to take advantage of the time and record something in acoustic, like the whole band playing acoustic, not electric. So he asked for a producer or someone to help with the recording, and Primavera Festival recommended my name. So we met there in the recording, and we were slowly meeting the other and working well together. And the last day we talked about, okay, why don't we try to work a little bit farther on the next album? And by the time I had some concerts in New York, and I told Lee, hey, I'm going to be in New York. Why don't we try? So we started to work on Electric Trim almost without knowing that we were working. We just got in the studio and threw some ideas there, and it was really interesting. We both felt that we were working together very well.
Lee, you encounter many people in just going through life, going on tour, in your practice. What was it about Raul that made you think, I might have a new partner here?
Well, you can never tell when a working relationship is one that's going to last for a long time, as evidenced by Sonic Youth's relationship together, or is more fleeting. But it was pretty clear as soon as we really enjoyed making the Acoustic Dust record together, and as soon as we started on Electric Trim, it was pretty clear that we shared a lot of enthusiasms for like the kind of creative time you can have in a recording studio, and different approaches to song form and melody, and it just kind of took off in a natural way that we wanted to keep working together. And if we saw Electric Trim as a step away, a step somewhere different than the records I was making before, in this certain restricted format, 2 guitars, bass and drums, same format that Sonic Youth used for so many years, Electric Trim kind of cast the songs in a different instrumentation and a different approach to arrangement. And it's just kind of ongoing. With this record, when we started this record, we wanted to just move even further, and we felt in a way freer to move further afield, to something that maybe is not even rock at all, that has got a lot of other sorts of things on its influences.
So Lee, if you were to kind of characterize the sound and approach to this new record, Names of North End Women, how would you do so?
Well, at first I was calling it electronic folk, because it's kind of, in a way, still to me a mix of those two genres, but we were putting these high-tech digital machines up against old analog hissy cassette tapes, and recording stuff ourselves. And we were, in a sense, making, sound pieces, songs, whatever you want to call them, in the same way that we made Electric Trim. We were just, our focus was on different ideas, different instruments, and different strategies of song making. I don't know, electronic folks still, there's still there's a little bit of acoustic guitar here and there, and there's an electronic, it's a meeting in a way of a bunch of different influences.
Does the folk signifier reflect even your attack as a vocalist here?
I don't know. I'm not so sure about that.
I wondered about it. It is a more poetic approach, almost spoken word at times, and I wondered where that was coming from and why you felt like that. Not always, of course. I'm generalizing a little bit, but would you agree? It seems to be more steeped in that mode.
Yeah, Raul, do you want to answer this about the spoken word?
Well, it's something that I think we both felt that it had to be one of the main elements on the record.
Yeah.
We did a song on Electric Trim that was called Moroccan Mountains, that we played it a lot during the next tour, the tour we did after the record was released. And that song starts with a spoken word section, and every time that I was playing it live, I was thinking, this is so good. Lee's making spoken word. He's doing spoken word so good that we have to do it again on the next album if we're gonna work together. We were thinking about working together again. So I remember one day, I think it was in Amsterdam or somewhere, or maybe Belgium, that we were having a beer together, and I mentioned that to Lee. I mentioned that I really wanted to work on spoken word on the next album, and that was something that we started with. We started on. I was thinking more than electronics. What we've done on this record, it's sampling. We've sampled with tapes and with cassettes and with digital sampling machines, but we were sampling ourselves or old cassettes or old tapes and working with those samples. We were almost not using electronics in the way having
drum machines.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Raul, I want to ask you more about the kind of soundscape nature of the record in a moment, but you said a few things there that I want to follow up on because as Lee might remember from our last interview, I'm a little bit obsessed with his Sonic Youth song Skip Tracer. And and so, Raul, I don't know if you are familiar with that song or not, but it has a similar kind of, it's to the point where people are like, Vish, stop talking about Skip Tracer. Why are you so obsessed with this particular song? But there's something.
It has a spoken word element.
That's right. It has a spoken word element to it and singing. And when the singing comes in, there's a very dramatic sort of liftoff when the singing kind of is juxtaposed with the poetry or the spoken word, if you will. So I guess, Raul, what I'm getting at here is Lee is someone with a vast body of work, a very well-established figure. You come into his life and say, you know what, Lee, let's change stuff up. I'm curious about your your approach to that. When you have someone who, for a lot of us, is this iconic artist, how difficult is it for you to suggest to someone like Lee Ranaldo, let's change gears, let's challenge ourselves. You've been doing something very well for a long time. I have some ideas. Does that give you pause at all as a producer and as a collaborator?
I understand the question, and I've worked with some people from other generations, like older generations than me, that I admired before working with them. Lee is one of them. And I made myself the same question because once I'm working, once we are together with Lee, I think I lose every weight from the past. I only think of what we can do at that precise moment. And when I think about it, I want the music to be the best possible. I don't really think about, obviously I think where are we going to be comfortable, but I want the music to be the best possible. So I asked Lee to work together on something that we both like and we think that it's interesting. I don't care what we have done before. We have to focus on what we can do next.
Okay, that's a fair response, and I appreciate it. I wasn't suggesting you might be starstruck, by the way, because in my experience, Lee is among the most unassuming people I admire that I've been able to meet with or speak with. I always enjoy speaking with Lee. It feels very natural. Lee, I don't know if you can hear me right now, but you're a good man. That's all I'm getting at.
Well, what I was going to say is Raul kind of has a history of working in this way with of pushing people maybe a little bit outside their comfort zones, or of just suggesting a different approach than they've taken in the past. So in a way, I think it was no different here. And I think it just happened that I was completely receptive to it. It's not like if I had come into Electric Trim with a really predefined set of songs where everything was already put in place, we might have made a totally different record. But because I came in with basically just some ideas, and they were very open to creation, we just took them and ran with them in a new way, and it was the perfect way to do that. And the same thing with this record. I came in with a whole bunch of demos, but we just started grappling with the studio and these new tools we had brought to us. It was the adventure was just something we both climbed aboard on, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned that when we talked about Electric Trim, that the studio became an instrument in itself, and I assume that's spearheaded a lot by Raul. And my understanding, and from what I can tell, there's not a lot of guitar on this record, which is interesting, given that Lee is known as a guitar player. Raul, was this just part of the challenge of saying, let's just abandon what we know and mostly put the guitars away? Was that what you're thinking there?
I don't think we had any preconceived ideas of how the record should be. I know that we wanted to have spoken word, and that we wanted to try to find new spaces. But we were not avoiding guitars, and we were not skipping guitars. In fact, the record started on a guitar loop that Lee played and I sampled, and then we started to work around it. But we were, as we said before, and we talked a lot with Lee about it after finishing the record, we were playing with everything that we had in front of us, like a cassette recorder or a marimba or a vibraphone. Every single instrument was good if it worked on the song. So we didn't want to think about the record as a like a pop record or a rock record. Let's say that where the first song has guitar, bass, drums, and the last song has it, and you hear guitar all the time. We just wanted to use the elements that were needed on the song, and that's how we approached every single song in this record.
Now, I understand tape recorders and tape players, cassette players are part of this sort of sonic landscape, I suppose.
Yes.
Lee, can you elaborate upon that? What does that mean exactly for us listening to this record?
Sure. Just to follow up on the last things we've been talking about, one thing we knew when we started the record was that we wanted to focus on the vocals. And in a way, it's something that has bonded me and Raul since that first session for Acoustic Dust. I think during the days when I was doing the finished vocals, we really bonded over the vocal aspect of it. And we worked on that on Electric Trim. And we knew a couple things going into this record, and they weren't about instrumentation, like whether we wanted more or less guitar. In a way, we treated the guitar just like every other instrument in terms of, all right, what's called for here in this song, you know?
Yeah.
It could be guitar, it could be something else. The songs weren't begun on guitar, so they didn't need guitar all the way through. But we knew we wanted to have this record be more open and atmospheric, and we knew we wanted to really focus on the vocals. So we spent a lot of times auditioning vocal ideas, different melodies. I would sing a melody, Raul would sing a melody, we'd go back and forth. Finally, I'd grab a line that made sense, and we'd start building. So we tried a lot of things in spoken word and different kinds of singing styles, and that's definitely a main thrust of this record.
Okay.
And in terms of the cassette recorders, the first few songs we built off these kind of very shiny modern digital machines, these samplers, and we started recording some things. And then as we got a bunch of songs in, we pulled out this old cassette recorder. It's a very special breed of cassette recorder. It's not your standard issue consumer product. It was actually made by the Library of Congress for blind people to listen to books on tape.
Oh.
And for some reason, you can speed up and slow down the pitch of and the speed of the music or whatever you're listening to. You can play the front side of the tape, or you can play the back side backwards. So it's really like a sound manipulation tool. You can do all kinds of crazy stuff with cassettes. Slow them down, like slowing down a phonograph record, or making them real fast, or playing them backwards and forwards. And I pulled it out. It's something I had used many years ago in performance, and we just started fooling around with it. And the couple of days before, we were recording a lot of percussion things. We were recording marimbas and vibraphones and these gamelan instruments that Sonic Youth had brought back from Indonesia in the 90s when we played there. Mm-hmm. And some of these cassettes had gamelan music on them from just like commercial cassettes we picked up, on the road somewhere. And so we started playing them back on the cassette recorder and then, recording bits and pieces, manipulating the speed and the forwards, backwards aspect, and then cutting those up like any other sound element with these digital tools. And it was a nice blending together of this old fashioned sounding stuff. I mean, you really, there's certain aspects of the sound of tape when you hear it. And when you hear that whirring or that speeding up or slowing down, like these things that are so easy to do with analog elements that are kind of in a way more difficult to do in the same way with digital. And we really like the way they work together. So 2 or 3 of the songs are built with aspects of these tape tracks as part of it.
Yeah, I was just thinking as you were speaking there, Lee, that if any sort of guitarist was going to transition into more studio experimentation or effects-laden work, it might be a guitarist in Sonic Youth. On some level, this is not really foreign territory for you.
No, I'm not. I've always been super enthusiastic about working in the recording studio. Sonic Youth was very creative in the recording studio, but we always came to recording sessions with a group of songs we'd created. So we spent time in isolation creating the songs and then working in the studio. So we were creative to some degree about recording them, but mostly we were using the recording studio as a tool to record songs we'd written. And, I was always fascinated with the way albums from the 60s in particular were described, like Sgt. Pepper or Pet Sounds or Dark Side of the Moon, where they were really doing stuff in the studio that you couldn't just create in rehearsal in a way, and somehow with Raul, we just found the same moment in time where we were both interested in working that way in the studio, seeing what the potential could be in our current age,
Yeah.
And in a way we're drawing on modern music as well. Some of the most creative sounds being made these days is in like pop music, some of the stuff that you hear on the airwaves is production-wise really astounding, and so we're not limiting what we're drawing on to any particular genre.
So, Lee, it's fair to say you don't hate guitars. You never hated guitars. You like guitars.
I love guitars. We both do. We're both guitarists at heart,
Raul, do you ever get sick of guitars, Raul?
I get sick of myself, but not of guitars.
But any instrument, I was talking about the fact that mostly when you put on like a modern record, like a rock record anyway, the guitar starts at the beginning of the first song and does not stop until the end of the last song.
Yeah.
And in this case, there is actually quite a bit of guitar on this record, but it's used in judiciously in a way. It's used where it's needed.
It's like a texture.
And maybe in another place a vibraphone is needed or
right.
something else. It's not at all an anti-guitar statement or anything like that.
Yeah.
No, there's not a priority for guitars. Guitar is not more important than vibraphone.
Right.
It's at the same level. Everything is at the same level, except like Lee was saying, the vocal, the voice is like one step further because we really wanted to focus on vocals on this record.
Yes.
Yeah, it sounds like it was a little bit happenstance that maybe I'm overblowing the whole guitar, no guitar aspect. It sounds like, Raul, you're saying that's just kind of the way it all shook down.
Yeah.
We didn't think much about if there was guitar or no guitar. I mean, we both have a friend, the one that Lee biked with him today, that he was saying there's no guitar almost no guitar on the record. Maybe fans would be a little bit upset about this situation, but Lee and me, we both thought that it was like how it should be. I mean, the record was what it had to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was exciting. We're not burning our guitars or anything. We had no mandate or, manifesto that said we're making a record without guitars. They just weren't needed. So that's fine. It's not really it's something a lot of people have been talking about in a way, but it's just, it's not really an issue on any level.
Okay. I noticed, Raul and Lee, you've both refused to name this fellow cyclist. Are they in the CIA or something? Are you protecting their identity? Who is it?
No, it's a friend of ours named Fred Rydell. He actually made, I don't know if you ever saw it, there was a movie made about the creation of electric trim, and he made that movie.
Yeah.
So he has some sort of intimate inside access to the two of us.
Well, I just wanted him to have some credit, not only for cycling in the wintertime, but for now making this film about electric trim. That's great.
Yeah.
Raul, I want your perspective on this, and you can talk about this perhaps in your response to how the lyrics and the all of the words came to be on this record. I have some sense of that from the liner notes, but if you can talk a little bit about that, if you can, from your perspective, and also the title, Names of North End Women. Raul, what is your take on that title?
Well, the title is something that Lee came with it, and we had a lot of discussions about if it was the right title for the record. At the end, we decided that yes. And the point where we both agreed on the title was like that Lee took the title from like a section of Winnipeg where Lee's wife she's from there, and it seems that there's a section of Winnipeg where there's some streets named under names of women, and this section of Winnipeg it's not a rich section. It was like a section with many social problems during the years, and we both like the idea of having streets under names of women, not famous women, not women with surnames, not women who were politicians, only women that could be anyone, and especially women because they've been oppressed under men for centuries. And this idea of like a name that could be anyone, and especially like name of a woman, we both thought that it was very interesting.
Okay, I appreciate that, Raul. Lee, can you expand on this in any way? Or
yeah, sure. We were driving in the North End one day, and all the streets were just like women's names: Ellen Street, Harriet, Greta, whatever. And I don't know, there was just something about it that struck me because it wasn't, as Raul said, it wasn't specific people. Like it wasn't this famous person or that. It was just first names of women. And I went back a few days later. This was in December, so there was snow all over the place. And I kind of parked my car and just walked the streets. And I was just kind of writing down a list of the names of the streets. Lydia Street, Kate Street, whatever. And there was just something poetic about it. I really liked the idea of it. And it felt like, in a way, it felt like those streets were celebrating women in the universal rather than in the specific. I mean, it's either the universal or the anonymous. You're not really sure which. And I thought it was an interesting aspect to the record we were working on, to have it have this kind of feminine side of it. And I wanted to use the idea of many different names in the lyrics. I thought it was an interesting way to tackle the lyrics on this record, just to have a sort of a very broad framework to hang things on. Like, let's put lots of names in the lyrics. And, again, as with Electric Trim, our friend Jonathan Lethem, the American author, is co-contributor to some of the lyrics on this record.
Yeah.
And, so I mentioned it to him early on. And I just thought, after I wrote this list of all the names, I wrote at the top names of North End women. And then the more I thought about it, the more I thought like, well, that's a cool name for the record if we actually do this, with the lyrics. And I just liked the idea of walking down those streets. It was like the way people drift in and out of your life. In a sense, I was wandering these streets. You pass a street with somebody's name, maybe you know somebody with that name, and then you move on, and there's another street, and I don't know. It just played with a lot of different poetic aspects. And later, we got to talking about the social and social justice aspects of the name and the place, and it just spawned a lot of interesting discussions.
Well, it's an enigmatic title, and that particular song, the title track, is really astounding, if I might say. So,
Oh, thanks.
yeah,
Thank you.
It really haunts.
There's another touchstone to Winnipeg on this record. The last song on the record is called "At the Forks," and the Forks is the place in Winnipeg where the Assiniboine and the Red River, I think it is, where the two big rivers come together, and where, for instance, we would go and skate in the wintertime or picnic in the summer or whatever. So the lyrics to that song also have this weird reference to Winnipeg.
Yeah, no, it's as always with Lee Ranaldo records of late, CanCon. There's Canadian content. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's very nice. Raul, do you have a sense yet of what's next for you and Lee? Have you had I know you were going to do some touring, and I imagine that's not going to be happening for a long time, but do you have collaborative plans at this point, or are you just trying to wait this whole pandemic out?
Oh, well, it's getting difficult. We were talking, well, first about the tour that it was happening now in April, and it's canceled. And we are thinking about how to reschedule all the dates for probably after the summer. Let's see what happens. And with all this pandemic situation, I don't know where I'm going to be able to fly to New York, or the opposite, for Lee to fly to Barcelona. And the other day, people from the label, from Mute, they were asking us to post some videos of us like talking about records, about music. And we thought that it could be interesting maybe to send music from like back and forth from one to the other, and maybe I can compose something here, send it to Lee in New York, and Lee can I don't know, add something or some vocals or whatever. And I think that will be the next step, because if not, I think we are not going to be working together for some months, and we don't want that.
Yeah, no, I think we're going to try and see what we can do long distance. I mean, I think this is a moment for everybody to step back and say, like, what can I do under these conditions, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of people have already thought that the internet is part of the solution here. You know, people are going to do live streams or this or that. I'm not exactly sure what it'll end up being, but so we're thinking about all that stuff too. I mean, I feel like this record, I can't wait to see the next group of songs we make together, given where we've come to with this record, because I think we've touched on a lot of things on this record that we may want to delve deeper in on the next, next tracks we make together. So it's doubly frustrating having come like this. The other thing that was interesting is, the record is very studio oriented, and we were trying to figure out how we will go out and play these songs live. And we had just, after a couple sessions of Raul being in New York, we did actually do a live performance the day the record was released in late February. And we finally kind of got our heads around how we were going to do this live. Our plan was to go out, just the two of us as a duo, and keep it as experimental in a live sense as the record is experimental, in the recording studio sense, and make the shows have kind of a theatrical, dramatic feel with just the two of us. And we're getting really excited about the idea of presenting the live show. And, all of this happens and it's all kind of crumbling to the ground, and we'll have to start again on that.
Well, I imagine, like a lot of people, when you two do get to reunite, anyone who's separated, who has maybe a similar circumstances, I imagine the art you make together will be particularly celebratory and triumphant.
Let's hope so.
I hope so. Maybe I'm jumping too far ahead, but that's my hope. I hope for sure that this can continue. Raul, beyond your work with Lee, are you going to try to make some work of your own, or what's your mood there?
Well, I don't know. I was producing a record last week in Portugal, and as I said, we stopped the recording, and I came here, and I don't know. It's difficult for me to think further than this week right now. Yeah. I think the situation is going to be super complicated here and everywhere. I don't know how it's going to be in America, but here it's going to be very difficult.
No, it's going to be complicated everywhere. I
think so too.
I wondered if in isolation you might write Raul and record. I mean, lots of us, as Lee said, there's artists are trying to come up with things they can do in isolation.
Yeah.
And what might happen is by this time next year, I hope there's a flood of content and creativity that emanates from this period. So that's all I was getting at. If you feel at the same time, this is depressing and this is anxiety inducing, and I don't know. I've been watching more Netflix than I usually do because I just need to disconnect from the news.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
have you watched Contagion?
No. I saw it was trending early.
It's trending.
I know.
I've never seen it.
Me
but
neither.
I definitely want to watch it.
I don't know if I do. I really don't know if that's how I'm going to kick back and relax and watch Contagion.
I hear that the first half of it is eerily.
Yes.
And there's been a couple books that came out in the last year about plagues and this very thing that have all of a sudden shot to the top of the bestseller list and surprised their authors. I forget. I was reading about one of them.
What are you doing to me, Lee? I'm trying to forget about this stuff, and you're like, "Hey, have you checked out all the plague content?"
I don't think it's time for any of us to forget about it.
No, I agree. I agree.
In a way, I think we have to remember about it as hard as we can. Because, like I say, once the weather gets nice, people's urges are going to want to go out. But
no, it's
we
fair.
Really do have to find ways to do whatever it is that we do from home. I mean, I'm sure that both Raul and I will not stop trying to record music or be thinking anyway about stuff or working on our computers at music related things. There's no doubt.
Okay, that's heartening to hear.
Yeah.
Lee, is there any some of your Sonic Youth folks there, your friends there have been releasing music? Have you been keeping up with what's going on there?
Yeah, sure. I certainly have. I really loved both Kim and Thurston's last records. I have to say it's kind of funny that within 3 or 4 months, we each released new music that is pushing each of our music making practice into new areas.
Yeah,
I love that aspect. That for all of us right now, we've found a moment to just sort of grow beyond our boundaries and not be afraid to do that, which is isn't very much in Sonic Youth spirit in a way.
Yeah, I wonder what that's interesting. And Kim in particular, you were talking about sort of electronic impulses. Kim's record certainly went further into that realm than maybe some of us thought she might.
Yeah. There's certain similarities not in the music particularly, but in the way that Kim and I and Kim and Raul and I have approached these new records, because her record is definitely a lot more producer influenced and with beats and things like that. And so even though we didn't turn out similar sounding products, we definitely have both had some of the same things on our minds, I guess. Yeah,
no, it's cool. Otherwise, band activity, archive activity, I assume everything's on hold.
Like we're always working on archive activity. It's June is 30 years of that the record Goo was released.
Yeah,
and we're trying hard to do some small thing to celebrate it. I'm not sure if we're going to manufacture some new product or what it's going to be, but we're hoping to be. Usually those things come and go and we miss them, but. We know that's a big record for a lot of people, so we're always working on archival stuff, trying to make live tapes to put online and things like that. Okay, well, I just thought I'd check in on that as a fan, so thanks for sharing that. We're mostly so busy with living our lives in the present that although we would love to put more time into that, we're obviously choosing the new instead of the old. I think that's probably for the best and healthy. So that's great to hear. Raul, if people want to learn more about you and your work, is there an online sort of realm that they can visit? Where would you like them to go?
I guess if they type my name in Google, they will find many things. I guess in Spotify or Tidal or whatever, like you can type my name or Refree. I have released some records lately that they can find interesting. Obviously, the record we've done with Lee together, it's one of them. Then I did a record with like a revision of Fado music with a Portuguese singer that is called Lina. It's called Lina and Raül Refree, and that's one that I could recommend. The one I did with Richard Youngs with an English singer-songwriter. All these records, they have been released lately, and so I'm proud of them all. And so just to clarify this, the pronunciation of your name is Raül Refree? Well, that's I don't know. I guess I'm used to many different pronunciations here in Spain. At least they say refree. I don't know. I say refree. For me, it's referee, but I don't know. I really don't know my own name.
Okay, no, that's fair. I just thought it was interesting. It's similarly spelled to the word referee, and you're a producer, which is kind of like a musical referee. I just think that's
very true.
That's a good approach, but it's not.
It's
referee.
not. It's not referee.
No.
It's close. It's just a little bit close. Is all. Sorry, that was a terrible joke. People make jokes about my name Vish all the time, and I thought I'd try, and it failed. It failed. I'm sorry. I've been in isolation.
No. It was good. It was good. It's the first time I hear this approach, so it's good.
I'm in social isolation, so all my social norms are escaping me. I'm sorry. I should have.
I can tell you things about isolation right now.
I imagine you can tell me worse things. Yes, I appreciate you making time to speak with us too, Raul. I really do. And Lee, similar question. If you want to point people to your online presence, where would you send them?
Well, I mean, LeeRanaldo.com is where all of my stuff is, where you can see the visual art and updates on my activities with Raul and things that Leah and I do or other things. We've got between us namesofnorthendwomen.com, where there's little interview clips of us. There's the 3 videos we made from this record that we're really proud of, and other like ephemera and places to stream the music or buy it or any of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So I would point to those 2 places. I made a record last year with the director Jim Jarmusch. We were both playing together. We made a record, and we were supposed to do our debut performance at the Victoriaville Festival up in Quebec in May. And that's of course gone out the window with all the rest of this stuff, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, okay, LeeRanaldo.com for more information about that. And then I assume, Lee, is your site, it's on Mute Records, the new album, so people can look it up there. And I assume there's information on your website as well. So again, go
Instagram. Instagram for me and for Raul is always a good place to find stuff about us. Maybe not always the advertising type stuff, but what we're doing or what we're thinking about.
I'm gonna follow Raul right after I finish this chat with you. I like Instagram. Okay, it's fine. It's all right.
Yeah.
If we can go out on a single song from this new album, I'm wondering if one of you two or both of you two, by consensus, can choose one. Raul, I'm going to throw this to you first. If you could pick a song for people to hear from this record, and we'll see if Lee agrees, but what would you pick?
I would say Words Out of the Haze right now. What do you think, Lee?
Okay, yeah, I was going to go weirder, but I think that's the most accessible, if you can call a song accessible. I mean, I love that song. I'm very happy to go with that choice.
Okay.
Were you going to say Let Yours Out?
No, I was going to say New Brain Trajectory because I know you love that one, and I thought you were going to say that.
True.
Well, if we are going to go with Words Out of the Haze, Raul picked it. Lee, can you tell us a bit more about it? Why do you suppose he chose that song? What is it about?
Oh, what is it about is a hard one to answer, Vish, I'll tell you. But there's a couple songs on the record that really do have kind of, if not pop choruses, at least a kind of chorus you can sing along to. And one is the title track, and the other one is Words Out of the Haze. So it's in a way, it's a good access to the record because it's got some spoken stuff, and it's got a bunch of the different things that we work on in this record. What it's about is a really hard question to answer. I don't know if I can encapsulate it in just a minute or two. It's
fair. I mean, is there anything in particular about the lyrics that you'd sort of want to, just one aspect of them that you could home in on, about something that intrigues you or might be intriguing to the listener?
Well, it's one of the songs that Jonathan collaborated on, so there's his input on the lyrics as well. And it's actually one of the songs that all 3 of us contributed to the lyrics on. There's lyrics by all 3 of us on this song. And so that was interesting. This may have been the first one that came like that, where we were all contributing lyrics on it. And in a way, and maybe it's good for our current moment, because the first things that pop into my head are that it's a song about alienation and a kind of a dystopian mood.
Oh, okay. Well, that does seem timely, unfortunately, and I appreciate that. Raul, do you want to add?
Words Out of the Haze is like you're trying to form something and it's not coming clear. Like maybe you're talking to someone else or talking to your society or whatever, but it's not exactly clear what's going on. But you're getting almost like transmissions from the ether.
Yeah. Okay. Very, very timely then. Raul, do you want to add anything to that?
I think that was a good answer for me.
I gather that. I know we're all anxious to go and watch Contagion on Netflix now, so I will throw to the song. This is Words Out of the Haze by Lee Ranaldo and Raül Refree from the new record Names of North End Women. Lee, Raul, thank you so much for this time. Please stay safe and healthy, and I hope we talk again soon.
Yep,
Thank
you
you.
too, Vish.
Thank
Always
you
a
for
pleasure.
the interview. Yeah,
Thanks.
pleasure. Bye.
Listening to your talk, words out of the haze, tearing me apart, ending of these days. Listening to your talk, words out of the haze, tearing me apart, ending of these days, of these days. I chained her to a passing cloud, I chained her to the sky. A dream of what transformed for a minute, but that was just a lie, just a lie, just a lie, just a lie. Lie, 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 lie. I can't remember what we saw, but of what we said only flashes. Lot of sirens going off, flutter of false eyelashes, eyelashes, eyelashes. When the night is open, when the sky is lightning, when the night is closing, we're coming around the lightning. When the night is open, when the sky is lightning, when the sky is closing, we're coming around the lightning. When the night is open, we're coming down the lightning. When the sky is closing, we're coming to the sea. When the night is open, when the sky is lightning, when the night is closing, we're coming around the lightning. When the night is open, when the sky is lightning, when the sky is closing, we're coming around the lightning. When the night is open, we're coming down the lightning. When the sky is closing, we're coming to the sea. When the sky is closing, when the night is lightning, when the sky is closing, we're coming down the lightning. When the night is open, we're coming to the sea.
Very nice to go international and connect Lee Ranaldo in Manhattan and Raül Refree in Barcelona, Spain, on this, the 533rd episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and is available on all platforms, everything, every podcast platform, on iOS and Android and YouTube and Spotify and Audio Boom. It's everywhere you want to be. If you can't find an episode that you're looking for, or if you want to learn more about me and sign up for my regularly scheduled newsletter, please visit my website, vishkhanna.com. Again, you can like Creative Control on Facebook, or follow the show on Twitter at vishcreative, or follow me directly at vishkhanna. Also, please visit patreon.com/Creative Control to make a flexible monthly donation to keep this podcast going. And if you pledge $6 or more, you get access to exclusive content from my audio archives, not available anywhere else. So again, if you're interested in that, I just posted a 2010 interview with Caribou not too long ago, and there's been some other ones as well, old Bonnie Prince Billy interviews. D.A. Pennebaker, the famed film director, D.A. Pennebaker, famous for working with Bob Dylan. Anyway, I had an interview with him a long time ago. That's all on there. Just go to patreon.com/Creative Control and donate $6 or more, and you get lots of good stuff. So thank you for doing that. Also, thanks to Pizza Trokadero, The Bookshelf, Planet Bean Coffee, and Grandad's Donuts for their in-kind support for this show. As always, thanks to my friend Jim Guthrie. He is great. He makes great music. Sometimes he lends some of it to me. You can learn more about him at jimguthrie.org. And finally, thank you. Thank you very much for listening to this episode with Lee and Raul, and for checking out old episodes, perhaps subscribing to the podcast, telling your friends that perhaps they might want to do the same thing as you. All of that is helpful, and I appreciate it, and I will talk to you very soon. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye for now.